Добрий день.
Good morning. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Olha Atamanova, and it's my pleasure to see every one of you in Ukraine Media Center. Today we start our work with an interesting topic. Now we are about to discuss the way the Ukrainian retail sector works during the war and the conditions that we're facing on a daily basis. We will be talking about current indicators, tendencies, challenges. So let me introduce a speaker. Joining us today online is Andrii, Zhuk, co-founder and chairman of the Retail Association of Ukraine. Mr. Andrii, good morning. Good morning, Ms. Olga. Good morning. So, Mr. Andrii, let's start with the general situation. What is the situation in the Ukrainian retail sector? What are the challenges they're facing? What's going on with the turnover amidst the full-scale invasion? And what is the dynamics that you observe lately? What are the tendencies? Well, back in June, we had an exhibition, Expo 2024, sector exhibition, and one of the biggest statements was that retail wants to survive. This is why we aim at development. This is why retail is trying to develop, first of all. And the figures are evidencing this. The figures that I'm about to tell you about. Today we have 19,488 shops. Classic retail supermarkets that Ukrainians visit on a daily basis. 740 were opened just recently this year. Some of the chain stores are closing because retail is not always a success story. And there were 487 new shops that were opened during the first 4 months of the year 2024. And generally we analyze the retail turnover on an annual basis, and today it's 1.5 trillion hryvnia as of the year 2023, which says that we are 30% in hryvnia equivalent. We sell 30% more compared to year 2022. But conditionally saying, it's like the same amount that we were selling in the pre-war year 21. So we can safely state that retail is gradually recovering. We're opening new stores, and gradually we're coming back to the indicators of the pre-war level, but it's in hryvnia, so let's not forget that the exchange rate is a lot different from the one that existed before the war. So, Mr. Andrii, talking about the challenges, we understand that they are numerous. We understand that we live under conditions of permanent shellings, missile strikes. We live amidst the rolling power shutdowns, other challenges. So what's important to understand, what's important to take care of? Probably we will discuss in more detail, for example, the issues of power shutdowns, to what extent it influences our Ukrainian retail, to what extent are we ready to the next winter season, if I may call it so. So I would like to say that one of the factors for retail sector development is the fact that classic retail, like markets, stores, all those kinds of trade that people are used to, is juxtaposed with modern retail, supermarkets, and it's an evolution in retail, and this fraction is growing. So some of those people who were going to the markets now attend regular stores. For example, there is a new chain, Aurora, that opens new stores in small villages, and people go there for the new retail services. So we have to understand that retail provides the advantages of a classic retail, I mean the modern retail, because in the modern retail chains you can buy better food products, you are better protected because you get a receipt, because the retailers pay taxes, and I urge everybody to choose modern retail over the obsolete forms of it. So talking about the figures, we have anti-records. You're putting it correctly that the conditions we live in influence the attendance of the stores. So we've beaten the record in Kharkiv region. There was 50 hours in a row, more than 50 hours in a row of air raid alert. So during the operation of the retail chains, the air raid alert was in effect, and it's one of the factors that influence the development of the chains, because the stores are closed during the air raid alerts. And on top of that, we had abnormal heat. Sometimes we were seeing the temperature growing all above 40 degrees, which influences quite bad the attendance of the stores. It influences the range of products in a bad manner, because the fresh group articles had to be shortened in order for the products not to deteriorate. But again, what is the advantage of the modern retail over the classic one? It's moving ahead. We install the generators, we get accustomed to all those problems. This is why I'm sure retail demonstrated its resilience. It will continue working. It demonstrated its resilience during the most difficult crisis situations that existed in Ukraine. And now the majority of the shopping malls, of the retail stores, are equipped with the generators, and they can operate autonomously. Those are the pros. And talking about the cons, when you work off the generator, it cannot be a permanent source of electric power because it's expensive to maintain them. They break, and we only view generators as backup power sources for our retail stores, for our points of sale. Mr. Andrii, we're prepared to a difficult winter, specifically when we talk to the experts from the energy sector. So to what extent the retail sector is ready for the upcoming winter? And you've touched upon an important statement: the generator is a temporary solution that cannot work on a permanent basis. So in case of long power shutdowns, to what extent are we ready? To what extent is it going to be advantageous for retailer to cover it? Do you have any calculations, like 4 hours, 6 hours, after which retail points of sales are supposed to close? Because, for example, during that abnormal heat and shutdowns, we were seeing examples when big retail points of sale were closing their stores during the long power shutdown. So again, do you have any calculations for our understanding to what extent retail is going to resort to such tools as shortening of the range of products in the shelves? Well, let me comfort you. In July, we were already through the first trials, so to say. We already tested the conditions that we are going to experience in the winter, or at least something close. But again, as I've already mentioned, in order for the products not to deteriorate, we have to narrow down the range of articles, and in this sense, many retail chains sign agreements to procure electric power from abroad. That's the mechanism that exists for the big consumers. You can sign an agreement with the foreign supplier, and you can be fully covered in terms of power supply. So again, let me comfort you. Retail sector is ready for all of the tests that we are about to experience. And in this sense, the bigger threat is the personnel. This is what I wanted to talk to you about. Yes, surely, let's talk about the personnel. We understand that now for any Ukrainian business, our human resources is a significant challenge. I mean, in all sectors of economy. What is the situation in the retail sector? To what extent do you experience the staff deficit, and what are the solutions that you find? We have a study, a survey by Razumkov Center, and it says that more than half of Ukrainians view the human resources deficit as a huge problem. Yeah, this is the problem that we observe too, specifically talking about the men. Unfortunately, we have cases when, for example, a cargo truck is coming our way with the food products. It's been stopped at the block post, and the driver is being removed from the cargo truck. This is unfortunately the reality we live in, and I see a lot of personnel resigning, those people who are afraid of mobilization. They just resign from their work, and it's a big mistake on part of the state, because the state loses a lot of taxes, because when a lot of people get fired, the state loses a lot of taxes. So what can be the solutions here? Well, we can attempt to replace the men with the women. There are interesting first cases, for example, demonstrated by Aurora or Fosse Group chains. They already train the women in operating the heavy machinery. This is why the answer to this question, what's coming, is the situation in the battlefield, the situation in the war front. Because if Ukraine will need more human resources to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity, we will see that retail will lose its momentum for growth, and we will see the stores shutting down. That's the sad reality of it. Thank you, Mr. Andrii. And to what extent such instrument as booking is being used in retail sector, and to what extent is it efficient? Well, this tool exists. It works. It works for the companies which are critically important for our economy, like food retail or pharmacy retail, or, for example, gas stations. It's an effective tool. It's not perfect, but it does work. Well, you've mentioned another important and good, in my opinion, initiative, an initiative that we were seeing in construction sector, for example, when the companies take the initiative and train their employees in mastering new professions. It's a cool story, really. And to what extent do you encourage such stories in retail? Are there any support mechanisms first? And does business really require approaches like this? Well, obviously so. But nevertheless, I cannot give you the exact figures, but I was looking through the indicators. The students who entered the higher educational institutions this year, they are way lower than previously, because the youth needs to update their personal details in the conscription offices to enter the higher educational institutions. Unfortunately, many people are afraid to do this, and what we're about to witness is the decrease of HR pool. I know about that example with the women that I've mentioned, the operators of heavy machinery and drivers of heavy trucks, but I think that we're about to see more examples in other sectors. Something that comes up to my mind promptly, like, do you remember as you enter the appliances store, it happens so that there are a lot of female sellers, because frequently the men could provide you with sometimes historically with better advice on appliances, or they could carry something heavy, the same appliances. And now this percentage of men has significantly decreased, and we're about to witness even more female sellers in this category of goods, such as the appliances. Well, regardless of the fact that those are really challenges, but in my opinion, it's still a good trend because gender equality should be in place. I think this is something that's gonna push us to this gender balance. So, Mr. Andrii, your forecast, if I may ask something short term, I understand that it's difficult to discuss like long-term perspective, but talking about something short term, to what extent retail is going to overcome all those challenges? To what extent the consumers will be satisfied, because we understand Ukrainian consumers are used to quite a high level of services, and this is what all of the surveys evidence. So to what extent are we going to preserve that level? Well, transformation that is going on, it helps us with personnel. Like previously you were entering supermarkets and you were seeing a lot of employees sitting at the cashier desk, for example, but now you see the self-service desks growing in all of the supermarkets. So retail is definitely gonna make it. Retail is going to continue working, but how is it going to work? Who is going to be the consumers? What brands, what trademarks are going to enter Ukraine? It all depends on the situation in the front lines. And I want to say that there is a huge gap. We don't know how it's gonna happen. On one hand, in 1 year we may have an open flight like from Kyiv to Singapore, and on the other hand the situation may be real bad, and we all need to work real hard to be ready to continue being strong, to be ready for those challenges that exist, to be ready for the challenges to come, because now Ukraine is a candidate for joining European Union, and there's going to be yet another new reality we have to work for. But I think that's another topic for a different conversation. What's going to happen as soon as Ukraine becomes a member of European Union? Thank you very much. We will definitely discuss it. Thank you very much for joining our broadcast today. Let me remind you, dear colleagues, joining us online was Andrii, Zhuk, co-founder and chairman of the Retail Association of Ukraine. I want to thank you, and let me remind you that our next broadcast will be at 13:30. We will be talking about current situation in Israel and further actions of Israel authorities. Joining us online will be Yevhen Kornichuk, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine to Israel. So stay tuned. Let's work together for our victory. Thank you. Bye.